Hi, it's Lisa from Koi Depot. I have a question. Are you going to get someone something for Valentine's? Are you going to get something for yourself? Are you looking for some ideas? What about homemade chocolate peanut butter cups? They're easy and they are not nutritious. If you want to know how, just keep watching. Okay, so to make peanut butter cups, you need very few ingredients. I'm gonna go over them. You need chocolate. Personally, I prefer a mix of two-thirds dark to a third milk. You might want to do all milk, or you might want to do all dark. That'll satisfy, depending on the dark, a vegan option. The only hint I'll give you about the chocolate is eat it when it's out of the pack. If you don't like the way it tastes, you're not gonna like the way it tastes in a peanut butter square or a peanut butter bar. Okay, so just make sure you like the chocolate, and however, whatever you work with that you like, it's gonna be fine. I'll go on the breakdown with that. Then you're gonna use peanut butter. I use the dirtiest and the most common of peanut butters, Kraft or Skippy. It's got hydrogenated oil in it. I've used Smoothie, I've used Smooth, I've used Crunchy. It doesn't matter, it's just a preference. I picked this one because it is super smooth and fairly greasy, so it's going to maintain a consistency. You can use absolutely all natural peanut butter if that's what you like. And you can add ingredients to make it as smooth as you want. I find this the easiest to work with. For me, the natural stuff will separate a bit, and it can be really hard to remix it, and it can make it super dry peanut butter. Well, it's not going to be a cup. It's going to be a block, actually. To sweeten it, I use icing sugar. The icing sugar I find is the best because it binds it, and it's super easy to work with. Having said that, depending on how you want to sweeten it, you might consider honey. I've done it with brown sugar. It makes it a bit grainy, but that can be kind of nice. So you can experiment with that. But for today, we're just going to do Old Kraft Smoothie, Redpath icing sugar. The last ingredient is salt. Personally, I like salt on chocolate, especially peanut butter and chocolate, because peanut butter is really rich and can be kind of drying, and I find when you put a little bit of salt on the top of the chocolate and in the peanut butter, it gets your salivary glands going, and so smooth sailing, I guess. So I just use kosher salt. Nothing fancy. You can, again, experiment with the salt. The only thing I would say is definitely go with something with a thicker flake. If you're gonna go, like, you don't use salt shaker salt. It's not gonna have the same effect. Okay? Because you want sparse little chunks of salty bits and not a uniform super salty thing. That's what you're going for. That's the ingredients. Now, what you're gonna use for your molds. My favorite mold is this silicone ice cube tray. You don't have to oil it. It's not tricky to use. When you finish with the chocolates, you're just gonna pop them out. It's super easy. I also have a silicone jumbo muffin form. Same thing. The only thing is you're gonna make, with this size, you will make a massive peanut butter cup. It'll be enormous. You could go into a coma, I'm not sure, but it's something, you might wanna cut it. If you don't have either of these, that's not a problem. You could also use these little mini muffin things, okay? The deal with this one is it's a little smaller. You're just gonna be watchful because it's shaped like that. You're gonna just be a little bit watchful of your ratios. I don't go anything smaller than this because I find then what you do is you get a lot of chocolate and not a lot of peanut butter, or you just get like a smear of peanut butter, and I don't like it. I'm looking for a peanut butter cup that's got a good bit of chocolate and a nice meaty center of peanut butter. This is my double boiler, okay? I don't have a regular double boiler. If you do, great. If you don't, all you want is a small pot, and it's gonna just go inside a bigger pot with some water. That's your double boiler. You need to do this with chocolate, 100%. If you put chocolate directly on the burner, the chances of you burning it are very high. It'll go grainy. It's not going to taste great. It's garbage after that. Okay, so you need your double boiler, but you don't have to go crazy with that. So I'm going to just take my chocolate. Again, these are all kind of ballparky, okay? So this is a Lindt bar, and this is the 70% dark. I like this chocolate a lot. I think it's really tasty. It's really smooth. So this is what I use today. I'm going to do roughly 2/3 of this. Yeah, there, a little more. And then I'm gonna do some milk chocolate. So you're gonna get this going. If you find, say, that you use too much chocolate, I'm gonna do half this time, okay? Actually, there. So I did the whole 100 grams of dark, and I did 50 grams of milk. Okay, I'm going to just throw this on the burner, and I'm going to put that on high. A note about the chocolate. Say, for example, you melt too much. That's not a huge deal. You've got chocolate left over. Just pour it into a plastic container, put it in the fridge or put it in the freezer. Next time you want to do something with melted chocolate, just pop it out. Of course, if you have a half a pot of melted chocolate and you want to use it immediately, then I think just get at it, and you can eat it right away. Now we're gonna go on to the peanut butter. Same thing, I'm not gonna give you super specific measurements because I don't think it's necessary. This is something, again, you can use this sweetened peanut butter, you can use it for peanut butter cookies after if you've got stuff left over, or you can save it for the next time you make peanut butter cups. Okay, so I'm gonna take a lot. Okay, like a nice scoop. There. That's got to be like cup and a half. Okay. Then you're just going to spoon in some icing sugar. Don't dump a whole bunch in. You need to taste it to make sure it's the flavor you like, okay? So don't start with a bunch because then you're just going to have a vat. So I'm going to start I'm just going to do a tablespoon or a heaping tablespoon and just mix that in. Nothing super, you don't need a mixer. Apparently you don't even need a reasonable spatula because this one's actually pretty crappy. Just mix it in. It's a bit too silky for me. I like it a bit thicker, or a bit stiffer rather. So I'm gonna add a bit more, okay? That's another big heaping spoon. Now would be an excellent time to taste it. So that's a nice density. I think I did mention it, but absolutely crunchy peanut butter is actually my preference. I just don't have it in the house. And let's see. Peanut buttery, very sweet. I'm gonna add some salt. Okay, so with this coarse stuff, just rub it between your fingers. Just a bit. Again, when you're making this, make no note about what you're making. You're making junk food. Okay, this is what it is. It's not healthy. It's not supposed to be healthy. It's supposed to be delicious. Okay, so the chocolate is nicely melted. That took about 4 minutes. Okay, so now that it's at a steady boil, you can turn it off, or you can just leave it on low. You might have to throw some more chocolate on depending on how much you use when you're doing the cups. Just a note about that, when I was first boiling the chocolate, because I'm impatient and I had it on high, and because this is not, strictly speaking, a double boiler, water can splash out. So one, be careful you don't get splashed, and two, you don't really want water in your chocolate. It's not gonna wreck your chocolate, you just don't want it in it, okay? So this is all melted, and it's nice consistency, it looks really great, and so now all you're gonna do is very, very carefully just plop a little bit in to each one, and you're gonna try your best to be consistent for each one, okay? So it's just a little, a couple of little shoves, and then that's enough, and then let it wait so you don't get it all over the sides, although it's not a huge deal. Okay, couple of little shoves, couple of little shoves, couple of little shoves, like that. On another note, so say you don't have the paper cups, say you don't have the silicone, and you happen to be in a food store or kitchen supply store or the bulk barn, and you see those little plastic forms, like it's a sheet of hard plastic, and it's a form for what looks like an exact replica of a Reese's peanut butter cup. I used them and then I threw them out. The reason I threw them out was because one, they're really shallow, so you end up getting really a lot of chocolate and a smear. That's number one, I didn't like it. And number two, I found it really hard to get them out. I ended up cracking a few of the chocolates, and I found them really irritating to work with. So I wouldn't use that. However, having said that, maybe you want to just make a pan of it. So just get a shallow pan, line it with parchment paper, and make basically peanut butter bars, okay? So you're gonna just plop that in, okay. Now, regardless of what you use, you're going to have to even it out. Now I look at that, so basically I used 150 grams of chocolate, and I don't think that's gonna cut it. That's not gonna be enough. So I'm actually, while the burner's on, I'm gonna throw some more chocolate in this. Okay, so I got the chocolate in. The last thing you're gonna do, if you look, you're gonna see it's not gonna be even throughout, okay? So all you're gonna do is you're just gonna give it a little shake, okay? That's all you're doing, just so it's sealed. Another note about the chocolate. So if you are a chocolatier, which I am not, I make at-home junk food, there's a whole art to tempering chocolate, and that's going to mean that you cool chocolate in such a way that when it dries, it won't get that weird white dusty stuff when you form it after a few days. I don't know how to do that. So these chocolates are meant to be consumed within a few days. Having said that, you can eat them a week later. They're not bad, they just look ugly. You can store these, with these ones especially, I stored them in the freezer and just pop them out whenever I need a little pick-me-up. Which you could do too, okay? So that's just a note about that. I don't know how to make the powder not come on the chocolate, okay? So we don't need this. So now, it's the peanut butter part, okay? So I can tell you right now, I have more peanut butter than I need, which is good news, bad news. Good news is I'm set for my next time. Bad news is I'm set for my next time. Okay. So you're just gonna take this and you're just going to nudge it off your spoon and plop it in. Okay, that's all you're doing. You're just gonna nudge it off the spoon and drop it in, and try not to hit the sides. What if you're like, that doesn't look like enough peanut butter, I want more peanut butter? Then you're gonna put more peanut butter, okay? This is the amount that works for me.
And me too.
Yeah, that's Jay. You can't see him because if you go to Sankey Magic, you can see all of him. Okay? There you go.
They are looking so tasty, huh?
Thanks. So I got to tell you too, so I am not a great, I don't take it too seriously around measurements. because I just put any excess, I put it in the freezer, or I put it in the fridge and I use it again, or I eat it. But if you want to be, I'm gonna be totally honest with you, I thought I would basically do 100 grams of chocolate and then 50 grams of milk. I ended up doing 200 grams of the dark chocolate rather, and 100 grams of the milk, okay? So I needed more chocolate. The other thing about these, if you keep them in the freezer, the peanut butter is actually kind of a nice consistency because it has so much fat in it. It doesn't really get super, super hard. It's not like a brittle. So there's a couple of these that look a little bit lean. I'm just gonna add a little bit to it. I'm not gonna try to use all the peanut butter. Okay, so now we're ready. These are in. It's not going to be super fancy. If they're right up on the sides, I'm just going to kind of smush them down a little bit. It's not a huge deal. When I've made these in the past, it's not uncommon, or it is common, to sometimes, it's not like it's got a uniform seal of chocolate. Like I said, I am not a chocolatier. I am an at-home junk food maker, okay? So you just want to pull it off a little bit. If a little peanut butter peeks out the side, I don't have an issue with that. If you do, then maybe you want to be a little bit more fussy about this, okay? So now I'm gonna go over here, and there's my chocolate. You got the milk and the dark all in there, and we're gonna just give it a nice little stir so it's all even. Or maybe you wouldn't want to stir it. Maybe you want ribbons of milk. That's up to you. I'm gonna go for uniform today. You could try white chocolate too, although anyway, you could, I kind of hate it, so I don't know why I said that, but you could try it. I don't think I'd fault you for it. And now we're gonna go, same thing, we're just gonna gently plop it in, but we want it, you wanna cover all the peanut butter on the top. This is pretty soft. So you want to have a pretty good seal, let's say, okay? So we're going to go like that for now, and then if there's extra and you don't want to, if there's a lot extra and you don't want to use it, then we can maybe make a fairly heavy peanut butter top, or a fairly heavy chocolate top. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fill them all in, then we're going to give it a nice shake and give the chocolate an opportunity to seep around the sides. I have filled in them all with chocolate. Now I'm gonna do that thing where I shake it, okay? And you can still see some of them, like this one here, you can see some peanut butter on the top, and this one you can obviously see a lot of peanut butter and a little bit. I have a bit of chocolate left. I think I'm gonna have just enough. This isn't enough for me to melt more chocolate, right? It's just enough to I'm just getting in there to let's go to this one first. That's looking a little thin. We'll just even that one out. And then let's give a little bit more to this one and try to get on the side there. And then same thing with this one and that one. Give it a nice haul. And then we're gonna give it another little shake. And I may as well do this one because I've got a teeny bit left. This one over here. And that's the end of my chocolate. So I'm not gonna bother with anything else. So the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit of salt on top. Like I said, that's because that's my personal preference. I like salt with chocolate. Oops, rats, I just noticed this one. Pardon me. There we go.
And if you can please start again with the salt.
Okay. Okay, so that's set like that. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little salt because that's my preference. I like salt with my chocolate. You could do this if you wanted to make it look sweet or fancy. You could use those gold leaf if you wanted to do that. You could experiment with the salt you use. Again, my only thing is I would go with a large flake, okay? So I'm just gonna take a pinch between my fingers, and I'm just gonna, I'm not putting a ton, it's just a couple little bits on, well, not that one.
That's gonna be good and salty, that one.
Yeah, it's gonna be good and salty.
Yeah,
I have no issue with salt.
No, nor do I.
Not yet. I guess
Life's long?
till I'm told I can't. And that's it. Cooling, you can put it in the freezer if you want to hurry it. You can put it near an open window. You can just leave it at room temperature. And these have been in the freezer for about an hour, but truth be told, they need about 30 minutes to firm up, okay? And nothing, there's no harm in leaving them in longer, okay? So I'm gonna show you how to pop them out of this silicone mold. This is only relevant if you have a silicone mold. If you're using paper cups, your job is done. You just have to peel off the paper and eat them or gift them to someone. Okay, so with the silicone, it's rubbery and stretchy, as you can see. It's very pliable. All you're gonna do is get your finger underneath, sort of in the center, and just slightly nudge it out. And there is your chocolate peanut butter cup. As you can see, this one is not uniform. There's like peanut butter that you can see on the sides. If this is something that bugs you, then maybe make a smaller ball of peanut butter in the center, and then you're set. Okay, so I'm gonna show you one more just so you can see how it's done. Just gonna tip it over. I'm gonna pull that back a little bit, okay? And then just give it a little, just gonna nudge it with your thumb, okay? And there it is. That's the bottom side, so there's no salt. The top end is gonna have a little salt on top. And those are your super delicious peanut butter cubes, or as my husband calls them, peanut butter bombs, but they're not round, so I'm not really sure. Ta-da!